Hey guys, welcome to the We Need to Calm Down podcast. I'm Devin.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the show where we talk about all things Taylor Swift.
That's right. This is the show where two friends finally get to let their dedication to Taylor Swift fly free.
We'll be discussing everything from song breakdowns, Taylor news, and our insane fan theories.
But instead of some banter for today to start us off, I decided to go through and try to compile a list of accolades that Folklore has accrued in the just over 3 weeks since its release. So Devin, are you okay if I just rattle off how amazing this album has done already?
Go for it.
All right. So as of recording this today, Monday, August 16th, yes, we do record them a little bit ahead of time. Taylor Swift has already broken the Guinness Book of World Record for the biggest opening day for an album by a female artist on Spotify with 44 million streams, breaking Ariana Grande's record of 31 million for Thank You Next. Please note, if you want to break some records, you have to record an album in all lowercase. Quick reminder that the world was given 16 hours notice before this album came out. The album sold 2 million copies in its first week globally, 1.3 million of which were sold on its first day. Debuting at the top of the Billboard 200 with 846,000 units moved in the United States, this album becomes Swift's seventh consecutive #1 album in the country, breaking a tie she held with Beyonce for most consecutive #1 albums by a female artist. Also, by selling over 500,000 copies, she breaks her tie with Eminem, with 7 different albums selling over 500,000 in a single week. This also garnered the largest sale for an album of 2020, which wasn't too hard. She beat out Juice WRLD's posthumous album Legends Never Die, which is also a phenomenal album, as well as being the first or the fastest album to in 2020 to sell over 1 million units. This also garnered the largest sales for I already said that. All 16 tracks debuted simultaneously on Billboard's Hot 100, with Cardigan debuting at #1, earning her 6th #1 single in the United States, making her the first act in history to debut atop both the Billboard 200 and the Hot 100 in the same week. This also is the second album of Swift's in a row where all of the tracks charted, so the other one being Lover, enabling her to pass Nicki Minaj for most Hot 100 entries as a woman, with a total now of 113 out of, and I don't know if this number is 100% correct, but I think the last I checked, she was at somewhere between 157, 160 something songs. So 113 out of let's just say 60 songs in her total discography have charted, which is nuts. 11 songs charted on the Hot Rock and Alternative charts, breaking a new record for most top 10 entries by an artist with now 8. But my favorite accolade of this entire thing is the fact that once Taylor Swift's Folklore sold over 500,000 sales, it became the first album since Lover to do so, which was also the first album to do so since Reputation. So Taylor Swift is literally only in competition with herself, and she has been topping the charts unimpeded for 4 straight years. Okay. There are literally a million more accolades this album has achieved, but we do have an episode to do. So Devin, what are we actually talking about on this typical Thursday night?
So today we will be discussing The Last Great American Dynasty. We'll be breaking down the song for the 3rd track off of Folklore.
All right, so we're going to switch it up a little bit. Instead of calling them quick facts, we are now rebranding them to our introduction to the song and our initial thoughts. Because this one, and I think this is the perfect one to make that change, because we had some interesting initial thoughts. But Devin, tell me a little bit, introduce me to this song.
So like I said, it is the 3rd song off of Folklore. It is the longest title track of any Taylor Swift song since Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. And obviously with those 2 names, American Dynasty, Miss Americana, they have a similar theme
They remind me of each other.
Exactly.
For no reason other than they have the similar names.
They got America in it. This is the 2nd song with an explicit tag on the album. It clocks in at about 3 minutes, 51 seconds. And we both really didn't gravitate toward this song at first listen. And you had a big change with this.
Yeah, not this week, but last week's Power Rankings. I think this week is our last Power Rankings we're putting up. But last week's Power Rankings, it jumped up 6. And I'll be completely honest, it's mostly because, for one, one thing I noticed, I never skip this song. It's not that I seek it out. It's never the first song I put on when I'm going to listen to Folklore. But I'll skip like This Is Me Trying, I'll skip 7, stuff like that. But for some reason, this song comes on, I'm just like, all right, I'm down with it.
You skip all the good songs.
It just seems like such a normal, safe song, nothing out of the ordinary. So I think due to the fact that I never skip it and how average I would rate this track, I had to move it up. Also, it's just so weird. We're starting to poll some of our friends to gather some data for a future segment, and a lot of people love this song.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, it's just so weird that like this song has been consistently in the bottom, like 3rd, 5th, like very low in our rankings since the album dropped, but everyone else seems to love it and gravitate towards it.
It's not a bad song.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. But for me, it's like one of the songs that I do tend to skip because it's just like, it takes a lot of energy to like listen to it, and you're like, okay, you're listening to a story. Like, yeah. I'm not always in the mood to listen to a story.
That's fair. And I think the reason that I also kind of gravitate towards it a little bit more than you do is I do love songs with stories. This isn't my conventional story.
Yeah.
Like, when I think of songs with stories, I think of like Shooting Star by Bad Company, things that have like a traditional beginning, middle, and end. And this it does kind of have that, but it's not as in depth of a story. It's very much an overview. But it's also one of the few positive tracks on the album. It's very upbeat. It's not sad to listen to. It doesn't bring you down.
Mm-hmm. Very true. It is like a generally upbeat kind of song. If you listen to the instrumentals, which we'll talk about later, it has this, happy kind of tone to it.
It's very party-esque and very like indie folk, which I think was the official genre that this song was put under, which seems weird to me. It definitely feels more pop than indie folk to me. Yeah. But if you want, I took it upon myself to do a majority of the research for this song. As Devin does not care too much about it, she had no problem giving me that responsibility. So I went through and I did a lot of research, and it was really interesting, the stuff that I found about this house, about the story, about Swift herself in moving into this house, and all of the stuff that came with it. That was very, very fascinating to me. And I don't feel like I delved as deep as I'd like to, but there are like some really cool things that I found that I can share to give you some context around the song. Because I think arguably this song has the most context surrounding it than any other Taylor Swift song. But it also feels like Taylor's first real dive into like true blue storytelling. Because we do get like stories and stuff in her past, but it's not about an ex-boyfriend. For a very good part of the song, it's not really even about Taylor. It's just like a general story. I feel like it's like a flash fiction that she put together one day. And one of the main classes I took a lot in college in creative writing was flash fiction. So I do very much enjoy the genre, which also might be a part of why I like this story a lot. So I'm going to delve a little bit into the research I found. Devin, if you have any questions, if you want me to expand on anything,
I'll raise my hand.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right. So, like I said, this song isn't about an ex-boyfriend, but it is about a girl named Rebecca Harkness, which is an awesome name. Absolutely cool name. And the house dubbed Holiday House, both in the song and by Rebecca Harkness and her husband, Bill. This is a beautiful beachside mansion in Watch Hill, Rhode Island, which I had never heard of until exactly this day, that Taylor Swift purchased in 2013. When Taylor Swift first moved in, she marked her territory with a sign out front that read, "I knew you were trouble when you walked in," and then in all caps, "No trespassing." So what I think is really interesting about this is it's so funny. She blatantly let you know that this was Taylor Swift who moved in because she put like references to her specific thing. She wasn't coy. She was coy about it. She wasn't like private. It was a very clear and cut, "This is me. I'm famous and I'm moving into this spot." She was absolutely baller. and bought the house for a cool $17.75 million, supposedly in cash.
That's insane.
Like, she brought a briefcase. Like how? Imagine it was a duffel bag. Like, oh my gosh, that's so cool and so baller to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine. Like, why? Why does she need to do it in cash? She could have done it in a check, anything, but she's just that cool. She had to do it in cash. One of the coolest things that I found, and that fascinated me the most in researching this house and the area that it is in, is the fact that a lot of people in a lot of articles seem to be baffled why she chose this specific spot to set up instead of the Hamptons or like other more common places for billionaires and millionaires and celebrities to kind of like buy property and like live it up.
Mm-hmm.
This section of the United States in Rhode Island is generally the home to multi-generational families who come from long lineages of wealth, not like, as F. Scott Fitzgerald would say, old money. Which to me, it stands out so much because of how often Swift mentions The Great Gatsby in her writing, and you can tell it's been a huge like inspiration for her, and it's a story that she does look to and look up to in a lot of ways. It's the great American novel, and you can see it now in a lot of the stuff from Lover to this, and even farther back in her discography. But the story of her buying this mansion and moving in reminds me of The Great Gatsby, because that was the whole point of the novel, was he was looked down on as new money from I forget Daisy's husband. I think it was Buchanan or something.
Yeah, Tom Buchanan.
Tom Buchanan. Yes, I nailed it. Nice. I also impressed. Nice job.
I read.
It's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, you didn't go to high school, but read it. It's very, very, very good. And the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, absolutely amazing. But it's just so interesting. That's the whole point of the book, is he bought this house and he moves in and he's looked down on by old money. And that's all these neighborhoods around Taylor's house is just old money. There's no real celebrities there. She was the first one to really move in. And she it feels like she bought this house to just embody Gatsby himself. And you can see that in the throwing the lavish parties that she did and all of that stuff that she kind of like go through, not hiding who she was. And I just love that she ended up finding this place that drew her to that kind of lifestyle. If we want to go back before Taylor bought it, Rebecca Harkness, like I said, owned Holiday House for over 30 years from the 1950s until her death of cancer in 1982. She, just like the song says, was married to Bill, who was an heir to the Standard Oil company, who when he passed, he inherited all of that money, making Rebecca one of the richest women in the United States. Then when he died in the 50s of a heart attack, again, like the song says, she just blew up and was absolutely rich as crap. One of my favorite things in reading about her as a person is, among her hijinks following her husband's death, she renovated Holiday House to install 8 additional kitchens and 21 bathrooms. It sounds so ludicrous, but it kind of makes sense with where she was going with it. But she did, in fact, clean out her pool with Dom Perignon. She dyed a cat green, not a dog, but the color of green, the shade of green remains a mystery to this day. A couple of things that didn't make the song that showcase the, quote, craziest woman this town had ever seen, is moving hundreds of thousands of dollars from one bank to another just to confuse her accountants, which I think is so funny. She filled her fish tank with goldfish and scotch. She was married 4 times, believed in reincarnation. She used her wealth to fund a ballet and a foundation where she used Holiday House to train the dancers of the ballet, which makes sense then as to why she brought those kitchens and bathrooms, because she knew that she was going to be housing a lot of people for a lot of different things. And that, like, just like the song says, she threw her money into boys in the ballet. She renovated a firehouse to be an art gallery in this area of Rhode Island. just throwing her money at a bunch of different arts and things like that, which I think is really interesting and cool to see that she's actually throwing her money into things that, like, not like, obviously she's throwing lavish parties and things, but she's throwing her money into like the arts and stuff, which I think is cool. One of the other things that I noticed is, while it's unknown if she ever actually lost card game bets to Salvador Dali, which I did not realize that's who Taylor was referencing when she wrote this song. Salvador Dali is actually said to have designed Rebecca's urn, which is designed to be a spinning urn so she can continue to dance on forever even as she's dead, which is, Lord, that's so nice. Like, that's so cool. Such a nice little detail, and it's so interesting because this story you wouldn't have any reason to look into until Taylor wrote it. And this house did sit empty. No one bought it until Taylor Swift did, for about 31 years after Rebecca died, which is insane to think of, especially because of how gorgeous it is. You can see my background is actually the house. Yeah, and every article that I read is written from someone's point of view who lives at what did I say it was called? High Watch, Rhode Island. And they talk nothing about how amazing the beaches are, how difficult of a spot it is to get to. They just sing the praises of this area a lot. So, do you have any questions, any input you would like to do around the context of this song?
History, man.
It's so cool. Like, it's so nuts that, like, she loves this house so much, and it's such a crazy story that she bought it, and it has just so many parallels to her, which we'll get into when we dive into some of the lyrics. But it's so fascinating, and I love that it's such a different type of song, because I feel like you don't get songs like this very often, especially not from Taylor Swift.
Not today, really.
Mm-mm. So I really like it. I think it was the perfect album to put a song like this on.
Well, especially with the theme of folklore, which is, stories and legends that are passed down from, mouth to mouth. You wouldn't hear about Rebecca Harkness unless you really researched it, which you wouldn't have come across it. But Taylor Swift, such a mainstream artist, is now passing the story of Rebecca down.
I also love a little thing that you made me realize is with word of mouth and moving, passing stories along in that fashion, some details tend to get changed, like the dog to a cat. I love that idea of, like, no matter what, when you hear a story passed down through what is it called? Auditorially, orally, an oral tradition of passing down songs like this, or whatever. It's so cool because that's exactly what happens. Things are going to change. Some things are going to get emboldened. Some things are going to get misquoted, things like that. I think that's really cool, and I like that she mildly included it, even if it was just a writing design or something like that. Still, it comes across really cool. But yeah, that's the context around the story and why, and Taylor Swift buying the house, and we'll probably touch on it more as we continue going through. But let's go into it. Let's dive into some lyrics. So this is a lyric that you pointed out that you really liked. The wedding was charming if a little gauche.
Gauche.
In researching this, I actually found that gauche is often a term used by old money people to describe those with new money, kind of lauding the fact that these people who more recently came into money flaunt it much more openly and freely. So, which is another thing, like Great Gatsby, and like the division between people who grew up in wealth and people who, like, either stumble or rapidly build wealth over time. There is such a great difference. Old money people, they're born with wealth. They know how to handle wealth. They know what to do with their money. It's usually, some people like that are just very, like, I don't know if this is the right word, fastidious. Maybe frugal is probably just the right one to use. But they're generally, they're more reserved, and they don't show off their money as much. Whereas people who are new to money, they're not used to it. So they just go through and just party all the time, spend lavishly, and it's interesting. That's exactly the disconnect between Taylor and her neighbors in this area, is that, and also in a way Rebecca, with everything, where she was just spending money, flaunting it all over the place, and all the people in this area that are multi-generational families with wealth kind of like stick up their nose at it, just like in Great Gatsby as well. One line that threw me for a loop, and I didn't even realize she said it in this album, is "Bitch Pack Friends." Never noticed that she said "bitch" on this album.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. I mean, it was so when we did our initial reactions, I think, and we were talking about cursing on this album. I think I specifically said she never says the word "bitch" on this album because it flows really quick right by it, and I never heard it. And then as soon as I said that and finished that podcast, posted it, I listened to the album again a million times, and I heard "bitch pack," and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get chewed out for that, for incorrectly quoting that." But I think that's fascinating that she includes "Bitch Pack Friends" because, again, it's drawing a parallel to both of them. When Rebecca's husband died, she flew in all her friends from St. Louis, just like the song said, and then Taylor did the same thing with all of her celebrity friends, bringing in her bitch pack friends to throw all these lavish 4th of July parties and all of this extra stuff that like kind of pissed off the neighbors in this area because like I said, they're used to no celebrities living here. And then suddenly there are celebrities gallivanting around, fans trying to sneak a peek at Taylor and find her, like wandering all through it, and kind of made this like a destination spot that was kind of like hidden before she moved there. Pool with Champagne, Blew Through the Money on Boys in Ballet, Dolly, Dog with Key Lime Pie. We all referenced all of those. Those are all more or less true stories, or like we said, grandiose versions of what happened. One thing that's interesting, she does say 50 years is a long time where it sat quietly on that hill. 50 years is a long time, but stood for more like 31 years because, yeah.
Well, she's not going to be like 31 years is a long time.
It's definitely changed for songwriting purposes. One of the things that she does do in this song that I don't know if I pointed it out prior, but it's one of my favorite things in any kind of songwriting, be it Taylor or from anyone else, where she switches up the words in the chorus. So I have like some kinds of like theories as to why she does it. I think with songs like this, where it's very story driven, it's another way to add to the story when you normally can't, because in a chorus you're generally just copy and pasting what you say throughout the song. But when you need to really like hammer some points home or change something, this is when she does it. So she does "There goes the maddest woman this town has ever seen, there goes the most shameless woman this town has ever seen," and then when she's referencing herself, "There goes the loudest woman this ever seen," which I think is so fascinating. As we said, like she has Rebecca Harkness has shown nothing but that she definitely earns the title of maddest woman this town has ever seen. Shameless, probably up there. And then Taylor Swift being the loudest, as like I said, she brought a beacon of eyes looking at this house in this area of Rhode Island, which no one gives a crap about Rhode Island. You could blink driving through Rhode Island and miss it. And she just shone a spotlight on it, being the loudest now resident. Everyone knows Taylor Swift lives in Rhode Island, or has a house there at least. I cannot name another human being that lives in Rhode Island except for Peter Griffin, which he does, right? That's Rhode Island. I think it's Rhode Island.
Maybe.
It's either it's the New England area is where Family Guy takes place, and I think it's Rhode Island.
Gotcha.
But of two people to be associated together, I do love that. She also does this changing up the chorus in Invisible String later in the album. She also does it on All Too Well. So you can see like she has like this track record of doing this in songs that have like a lot of information to get out. But I just, it's something, I don't know why. I like getting variety in my chorus.
It helps progress the story. Because it shows like different parts of the song.
There's a mustache to show that time is fast. A marvelous time ruining everything. Probably my favorite line of this whole song. I think when we actually did our lyrics episode, this song was notoriously dry. There was nothing that really stood out to us, but it's really hard because it is a very specific story. So it's not there's not a lot of relatable lines, but I think this is one of the only ones that really sticks out to me as a very relatable line. And she like weaves it through how she had a great time ruining everything and how everyone was saying that she was ruining not Taylor Swift, Rebecca was ruining everything when her husband died. There goes the last great American dynasty. She's blowing everything. She's spending her money recklessly. She's driving everything into that he built into the ground, blah, blah, blah. And then Taylor Swift came in, had a marvelous time ruining everything for all of these old money folks that lived in this area. And to go even further on that, she, like I said, she really threw that community in Rhode Island for a loop. She upsetting them with rampant fans trying to get a glimpse of the house, her raucous parties, which I don't know if that's the right way to say that. Raucous parties probably, to even and this is a fun thing, is the infamous Taylor Swift tax that the Rhode Island governor proposed for all second homes in Rhode Island over $1 million in value. Pissed a lot of people off, but a lot of people speculated solely because when it happened right after she moved there, which brought a lot of attention to that, and it was promptly withdrawn, but did not make her any friends in the community because made everyone realize there is a lot of rich people that live in Rhode Island and that potentially have these houses and stuff.
Yeah.
I implore you, we're going to go into the music behind the lyrics, but I implore you to read stories about this. I hope there's a book or something. I would easily read about the story of her documenting what she did, Rebecca Harkness, and just relating it to Taylor Swift. There is a book here, and I would kill to read it. There's no way I could write it, but I would definitely read it.
The amount of books that Taylor Swift could write, insane.
I'm waiting for this album has made me realize that I would kill for a Taylor Swift fiction novel.
Mm-hmm.
Halsey's coming out with a book of poetry that I already pre-ordered, but I don't want poetry from Taylor Swift. I want like prose writing. I want Taylor Swift's The Notebook. Like, come on, give it to me. You know you can write a story, Tay. Just give me something.
She definitely could.
All right, I'm going to take a break from talking now. Devin, tell me about the music.
My turn. Okay. So we're going to be talking about the music behind the lyrics. So a couple things you should know. The song's in G major. It is 148 BPM, which is the second highest right after Peace on the album. There are a lot of instruments on this song, but less than others. We have violin, viola, drums, synth, bass, slide guitar, electric guitar, and piano. And when I was listening to it with these headphones, because typically I would listen to the song on my crappy car radio or just car speakers, but now listening to it on professional grade headphones, I was like, ooh, this instrumental is actually pretty cool. So I just wanted to check the number just because, but it starts off with just a simple piano. It's just a D note. I ran over to my keyboard and I was like, that's a D, right? But it's just a D note 27 times in a row. Just dun, 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 like just the entire time, 27 times.
It's actually interesting because we have been like doing stuff and like preparing for these episodes today, and this is the first time I got to hear Devin live react to a song as she goes into her thing. So I actually heard her get up and go over and just hear 27 and just like hitting like her keyboard, and then like hearing her freaking out about it.
I was just sitting here counting on my hands. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was crazy, yeah. 27 times. And then it goes into a G chord when we start. But it sounds like there's these automated fake drums, like you would use on like Logic or some kind of like music software. Like
yeah, now that you point that out, I hear that.
It sounds like a drum machine. And so that was interesting. But we get a D chord later on in the chorus. So it's like it's G major, A minor, C major. But then you have the D chord, which we talked about completing, like the 4 chords. That comes in the chorus. It doesn't sound too different. So it's not like you're getting this sense of completion, but it does just add to that vibe. And then it was interesting. In the first chorus, she had a marvelous time ruining everything. It's the same chord progression as the verses, which is the G, A minor, C, which like I guess it helps flow back into the verse. But I was like, that's interesting. It's just a little thing that I noticed. There's this electric guitar riff in the chorus, and then there's these synths that are kind of like just plucked around. And then you saw my live reaction to this, but I'm listening to the bridge, and the first half of the bridge, I'm like, all right, I'm vibing, I'm doing good. And then when she goes into 50 years is a long time, I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know if it's a guitar solo or something, but they just turned it down and then just popped off like just comes in, it's just this run that comes out of nowhere. And I was just like, what happened? And then it just goes away. It's just that one little blip. But it just adds so much, and I don't know why they chose that part of the song.
I tried to hear that. I heard I didn't hear blips, and I heard stuff like that, but I did not hear, I don't think I heard exactly what you heard. I'm going to have to go back and re-listen now, because I don't think I got exactly where it was. I just went to where I thought the bridge was and listened. But knowing it's 50 years is a long time, I'm definitely going to have to listen. It sounds like when I was listening to that part, it sounded like there were two different guitars.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have the electric guitar and the slide guitar, but then you also have that synth that's like din, 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 like just kind of popping around in between. And then the last thing I really noticed was she sings in her alto voice the entire time, just like this one octave of "There goes the last," and then the very end of the song, she just hops up an octave to "I had a marvelous time," and she's just running up and down. So that's like the highest she goes in the song to kind of just say, yeah, no, this is me. I'm celebrating. I had a marvelous time. Just like a maniacal laughter, like just like haha.
Does that count as a what's the thing that happens in Betty that I can't think of the name
key
of?
change? No.
Key change? No? Okay.
Because it's technically in this change. It's the same key, but it just goes up an octave.
That's stuff about music that I just do not understand.
It goes 8 notes up. So you have like I don't know if she was singing a D, or like if you have a D note, like I'm not going to do it, but I had a marvelous time I had a marvelous time. It's the same note. It's just a higher octave. Higher range.
So it's still a D. It's just a high D as opposed to.
I don't know if it is a D or not, but just that's the idea of it.
For instance, for the sake of the conversation. Okay. Interesting.
But that's all I really noticed about the instrumental. I really like it. When I was listening to it, I tried to listen to just a plain instrumental version on YouTube. But it's pretty good, pretty boppy. It's, like you said, a very, happy sounding song.
Yeah, like I said, I think we talked, the one is one of the few, I think that we said there's around 5 positive songs on this album. Mm-hmm. This is one of them. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is one of the few songs that are major, right?
No,
or is it the other way around?
Other way around. There's only 2 minor chord songs.
Interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. And G major, I think, is a very common.
Yeah. G, C, D, A.
Those are the first chords that I ever learned how to play on guitar.
Yeah. Cool.
So do you want to do some quick closing statements about this song? What now that you've listened to it, done your in-depth thing, do you think it's going to move up for you, or is it still relegated to the bottom? This was at the bottom of your power rankings, wasn't it?
Yeah. So with the one, when I did that analysis of it, it did climb up a couple points. I was like, okay, a couple slots. It was really good, at least instrumentally. I realized why I didn't like it at first, and now I like it. Last Great American Dynasty. It's a good song. Again, I think I just appreciate all the other songs on the album a lot more.
Why do you think that not people that aren't us gravitate towards it more than we do?
I don't know. I guess it's because, I don't know. There's very different kinds of Taylor Swift fans, like a lot of pop fans, a lot of lyric fans, a lot of casual fans. And I think that this song is just very, positive, just kind of flowing, and it tells a good story. And maybe for some people who don't like Taylor Swift as much and really like lyrical storytelling, they gravitate towards this. But maybe I'm just too sad to like happy music. I'm not even sad. I'm pretty positive as I can be during a pandemic, but I'm it's just, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because I think one of the things that I mentioned when I was going through and doing my research for it is the fact that the story and the, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The idea behind the song is so different and so unique to anything else that she's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely feels like the rest of the song is very cookie cutter Taylor Swift. Like, it doesn't feel like anything else about the song other than the content and the context of it stands out. And it might be, and this is probably reaching, but it might be the fact that she knew that, and she knew that this was going to be so different, that she knew the production around the song had to be very vanilla, just to like counteract how different everything else was, which might make it so casual fans or people who aren't as like deep into looking into Taylor Swift don't really care about the lyrics or anything. They just like that it's a good boppy song. That's the only I can think of. But it's weird because like one of my friends is a really, really like Swift stan. This is her favorite song on the album.
Really?
Yeah, favorite song of the album. Every time I badmouth it, she gets very upset. And it's been since day one. Since day one when it came out, she was like, I think this might be my favorite song. And she's held true to that for the entire time.
Something that I have noticed off this album, maybe more so than other albums, is that this album has so many different top songs for people. Mm-hmm. Whereas you look at some other albums and you have like those classics, like your All Too Well is obviously going to be like your top song off the album. But this one is just, there's such a diverse range of songs, and it's different than her past album that people are identifying with different songs. And you see all these memes about like, oh, you know, what it means for each, like, what it means for you if your favorite song is this versus this. And they say like, if your favorite song is Mirrorball, you have anxiety. And it's just like stuff like that.
I think that's very interesting. I think when we finish interviewing all of our friends on their favorite songs, we'll do a comparison and see, and kind of run some numbers and see how they all differ and everything, which I'm really excited to try.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I think that's it for The Last Great American Dynasty. There it goes.
There goes The Last Great American Dynasty.
Well, you want to take us home?
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, you know, Apple Music, Spotify. Tell us a friend about us, rate us 5 stars.
I always do this at the end of the episode where I always say, do you want to take us home? And I'm supposed to take us home with how we order this. Yeah. All right, I'll try to do you. Follow us on social media, YouTube. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at WNC.
Nope.
It's WNTCD. At WNTCD podcast. We share some extra stuff. We just shared, like I said, on Instagram, our final power rankings for this album. See where we ended up and our final decisions that we've made.
We are also on YouTube. So we are almost at 30 subscribers. If you want to subscribe to us, please do. When we reach 30, we're going to release some bonus content. It may or may not be my embarrassing lip sync competition video from 7th grade. Joe and I react to it. I basically just curl up in a ball and cry, and Joe makes fun of me for 10 minutes.
I would love if that wasn't what the video was, because you said it may or may not be that. So, like, you just gave a very specific instance of what it could be, and it's absolutely not that at all.
Who knows? Hint, hint.
If you have a suggestion for an episode, keep it to yourself. No, we're like I said, we're pretty stuck on folklore. We've been saying that for the last few weeks because what else are we going to cover right now? But if you do have a suggestion for an episode or for future down the line when we're all folklored out, let us know and we'll add it to the hopper. We're always looking for new content to generate for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. All right, come back. We'll be here.